Hello everyone, this is Andrew. Welcome to Keen on America.
On July 4th, 2026, America will be 250 years old, an anniversary that will, no doubt, be greeted with a mixture of celebration, contemplation, and resignation. In Keen on America, Andrew talks not just about the American past and present, but also speculates on its future. What, Andrew asks, will be the 21st century fate of this now venerable American republic?
Hello everybody. Last month, I had a show with a professor of economics at Chapman University in Southern California, Mark Skousen. He's a great-grandchild, I think, of Benjamin Franklin. He had a new book out, The Greatest American, Benjamin Franklin, the world's most versatile genius. And Skousen's treatment of Franklin was entertaining and innovative. Skousen is also the chair of free enterprise at Chapman University, and I think, to be fair to him, a distinguished libertarian, or certainly classical liberal, which is how he also presented Benjamin Franklin, his distant relative. Skousen is also the founder of the largest event, annual event in America of small L libertarians, Freedom Fest, which is happening this week. And as it happens, his daughter, Valerie Durham, is the president and CEO of Freedom Fest. And I'm thrilled that Valerie is joining us today. Valerie, I saw that you did a YouTube interview with Braver Angels, who we've done lots of shows with, about what freedom means to you. So I thought, Valerie, we might begin with that question. What is freedom for you?
Well, hi, Andrew. It's so great to be with you and talking about one of my very favorite topics, freedom. And that's such a huge question, and I appreciate being able to think about that, because freedom to me is the opportunity for the individual to have a self-determined path of elevation and expansion. And I think that's what the people like Benjamin Franklin were talking about in the Declaration of Independence when they talked about the pursuit of happiness. And so to me, making sure that each human sovereign individual on this planet has the opportunity to pursue their own path in a way that allows them to experience a journey of exploration, self-growth, self-determination, and expansion is what freedom is all about. And that's what gets me excited about my own life as a human sovereign being and as the president and CEO of Freedom Fest. That's really what we're doing, is we're creating that a conversation point and an opportunity platform for people who care about freedom in that way.
As I said earlier, you at Freedom Fest are the largest small L libertarian event in America annually. It attracts, I think, this year, it's in Palm Springs, about 1,500 people. I'm going to try to attend. What is libertarianism, and how might you distinguish it certainly from traditional American republicanism?
Mm-hmm. So libertarianism really, actually, I think, is very much in line with the concept of freedom and liberty that the original founders had. And it really puts at the baseline this idea that the sovereignty of the individual is prime, and that opportunity to have choice and self-determination is the key operating factor in all interaction. So it looks at free markets, free enterprise, extremely limited government, rule of law, and private property rights as the key factors that allow an individual to have the maximum amount of choice and freedom in their lives. It's as my good friends Matt and Terry Kibbe talk about, it's, follow your own dreams, but just don't impact other people. Do what you need to do but don't injure other people and don't take their stuff. And when you follow this basic principle of following your own dream, but not impacting others, which is why the rule of law and basic limited government is needed, because if you do things that impact other people and their right to do things, that's where we have to have some management. But as opposed to a lot of things that have come around in republicanism, where things like a large national defense or taxation, different things are seen as appropriate, libertarians really pull back from that. Even something as common as you'll often hear libertarians talking about roads. And people often see roads as a public good that should be provided by government regulation and policy. And libertarians would argue that if we need roads, the free market will provide them, and that there are other ways to provide roads other than taxation, running it through the government, and putting it out as a public good. So libertarians really look for opportunities for collaboration from a completely free place, with the sense that there should be some, again, then personal responsibility as well, that we also can't look to government for that safety net to protect us when things go wrong. If we own the rewards, we also have to own the responsibility when things don't go so well. So that's kind of a very broad, non-technical explanation of libertarianism. And I think that as opposed to there are things in kind of republicanism, in conservatism, where there is a feeling that government should be involved in the presence of certain religious practices, the institution of military spending and presence and things like that. So there's definitely a difference. Libertarianism really wants to strip the government down to almost nothing and let people live a free life and provide what needs to be provided just out of free market exchange.
Some people are going to be listening to this, Valerie, and thinking, this woman's a little odd. And the idea of roads not being a public good. I take your point that not everyone perhaps wants roads, but is the market really ready? What examples would you have of roads being funded by free enterprise so that it's not a public good? I mean, included in roads, would you include electricity, water? Are you suggesting all those should be privatized?
The more that we can have competition, the more we have improvements. And this has been demonstrated over and over again, that when you have monopolies in place, especially government monopolies, you end up getting drastic reductions in efficiency. You have inefficiency in prices, and you have inefficiencies in progress. It is because of free market exchange that we have seen such growth in technologies where there are not government monopolies. And so, yes, you could have multiple electric companies all competing for business and providing different ways of generating electricity and delivering electricity. And so you might have a solar company, you might have somebody based in wind, you might have somebody based in nuclear, you might have somebody based in natural gas, or some combination, just like we have with our cellular phones. We have different companies that provide cellular phone service, and as a result, we get better and better service at better and better prices. And that is certainly possible. I think there would have to be, it would be a tremendous capital expenditure if a company came in to build a road. They'd have to acquire the land. They would have to put the roads forward. And then there could be permitting so that you have a permit to drive that road. Or we already see the use of tolls by governments already. There are people who already pay for roads when they use them. They're called tolls. You drive through a little thing. Now, you don't have to stop and put, a coin into the machine anymore. You just are automatically scanned. It already exists. But right now, those tolls are going in to fund more and more roads. And I don't know about you, but most of the toll roads I go onto still have potholes. So I think human beings are pretty innovative in figuring out how to get things paid for and done. And I think we could rely on them to do a great job.
I'm guessing, though, Valerie, that most people don't want to be endlessly having to pay every time they go out to drive, and that the idea of roads being privately funded is problematic on lots of fronts. What about pavements or parks? Should those be privately funded too? And Should you have to pay to? I live up the road from Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. Not everyone wants to go to that park.
Yeah.
Should I have to pay if I want to go for a walk in the park?
A pure libertarian view would be, yes, we should have private parks, and then you pay to go to the park. And you have to remember that this means we have a complete elimination of taxation. You're not going to have sales. You already pay for everything you do. It's called sales tax. And you already pay for everything you earn. It's called an income tax. Those things go away. VAT taxes go away. Tariffs go away. You no longer have taxes because you're paying for the actual good that you are using. The truth is, right now, all of us, it's not itemized. It's not a bill you get that's itemized showing everything you pay for. But the truth is that all of us are paying for things we never use. Right now, some of my tax dollars are going into research projects over here, bridges I'm never going to cross that are over somewhere else in the country, a national park I'm never going to go to. So right now, what I'm doing is I'm paying a third or 40% of my income, depending on, whatever income bracket you're in. Some of that you get back in the form of the road in front of your house and where you might go to your local grocer and where you may travel. But a vast majority of that taxation goes into projects and services that you as an individual never use. And that seems pretty outrageous. So I would much rather have a mechanism for paying for what I actually use as a human being rather than just paying for things that I never have access to. That doesn't seem terribly fair, actually.
Valerie, I have to admit, I'm personally not convinced by this. One fairly mainstream critique of libertarianism is this reliance on classical liberals like your great relative,
Yes.
Benjamin Franklin, is slightly absurd because the world that the American founders came out of was an agricultural world. We live in a post-industrial world.
Absolutely.
So their ambivalence, hostility to government was all very well in the late 18th century, but it's, again, implausible in the 21st century. Is that critique fair in any way? I mean, can we really go back to the Franklins and the Jeffersons of the world to get modern wisdom?
I think we go forward. I think we go forward to what comes next. I think those people were incredibly modern and responsive to what they were grappling with. I think there are certain principles of human dignity and sovereignty and choice that have been present for all of human existence and will continue to go forward. But the way that we respond to that, we have to be in the now. I'm not looking to go back to Benjamin Franklin and the founding fathers. In fact, I think that some of the things that they had didn't go far enough. It was well and good for what they had at that time and the step that they took in that direction coming out of the Enlightenment and then changing the world dramatically from the actions that they took with the American Revolution and the Declaration of Independence. But that's not where we are now, and that's not where we should try to be. We can take what lessons we can learn from any of our predecessors, from a Marcus Aurelius and a Socrates through a Benjamin Franklin, into the philosophers like Ryan Holiday that we have today, or a Brett Weinstein or a Steven Pinker, or some of the scientific minds that we have that are thinking forward. In fact, Ryan Holiday will be with us at Freedom Fest this year.
Yeah, and Ryan Holiday is an old friend. He actually was on this show more than 14 years ago, back in 2011. Wow. So I've known him for many years. This was even before he started writing on Epicureanism.
Wow, that's amazing. And so he's going to be on stage with an objectivist, and they're going to be talking about how you make progress by sharing ideas based on a philosophy. So that's going to be a really interesting conversation. So my question is, what is appropriate for today? How do we manage a society, an economy that is vastly more complicated and sophisticated than the economy that our founding fathers faced here in America? So my expectation is we don't go back and that there are changes that need to be made. But I do believe that the ability of the human mind to be innovative and to look at what is needed now, governments have pretty constantly proved, and you can look at Soviet examples and other communist examples when they are in a pure command economy, they're actually quite bad at making economic predictions and providing for their people. It's only when you start infusing free market principles that you start to get some capability with a more statist government. And certainly, even in an economy like ours that's even more mixed, it is when you have things like Bitcoin and the internet and cellular phones, all of that came out of the human mind and progress looking for a source of freedom. That did not come out, even if they used certain government programs, whatever the government was doing with the internet back in the 80s, it took free market to turn that into the internet and then to take that to where it is now. So certainly there are places where we could have government research and things that we go ahead and use, but is it necessary to have government research in order to provide these technological jumps? I don't think so. I think that can come from other sources. But my goal is not to go back, it's to go forward. And I think there are some silly things we take with us, like the school year. Exactly right. We have an agrarian school year by and large here in this country, and that doesn't make any sense. What do we need to educate our kids now? And is that based on a public school system that came out of the 1800s? I don't think so. I think we need a massive overhaul in education, and it should be based on choice and what serves the people now. And I also don't think that that comes from a bureaucratic government mindset to say, this is what's going to fit everybody. I think we need diversification, and that comes from free markets and individual choice and individual needs. And I think we could do a lot better of honoring that fact about human beings.
You mentioned the internet. One of your speakers this year is Ross Ulbricht, a very controversial fellow. He was the founder and initial operator of the darknet market, Silk Road. Yeah. In your view, is the dark internet, is that a good thing where people are able to trade nuclear weapons, theoretically, drugs, seems to be rife with pedophiles? What's your take on something like the Silk Road? And why would you invite someone like Ulbricht to speak this year at Freedom Fest? Is he really a spokesman for your ideal of freedom?
So Ross's case, the part where we're asking Ross to come speak and where we're interested was that his sentencing was really egregious. That, what he did and the guilt for what his actions were and what he was found guilty for is different from what the sentencing was. There seemed to be an overzealous sentencing there for him to have 2 life sentences plus 40 years. There are mass murderers who don't get that kind of sentencing. And so that's really where we're interested in that conversation is, how do you handle situations where you have a criminal justice system that is sometimes unjust and sometimes very often unjust, especially to certain segments of the population. So that's really where
to be fair to, or to be perhaps unfair to Ulbricht, he's a white man, which we tend to do quite well out of the criminal justice system.
He is, but we talk about criminal justice reform at Freedom Fest. We've been talking about it for years because there are problems with our criminal justice system and how it treats different people. And that's not okay. And so that is something that we talk about quite frequently. So this is one example of someone who had an experience, and we have talked about many other examples. We have our Anthem Film Festival, which has over the years looked at many issues of criminal injustice in the justice system and how we need to look at that. So, libertarianism does not believe in criminal activity. Libertarianism believes in the freedom to make choices. But again, there should be natural limitations that when you take actions that impact somebody else, that is not libertarianism. That is not freedom. And so if you're engaging in human trafficking, for example, that is a violation of somebody's rights. If you are creating, a weapons exchange that is creating violence in an area zone. That is not okay. That is impacting somebody's life, the right to their own life, to not be
No,
violent.
I take your point. I'm not
So,
suggesting that Ulbricht was actively encouraging
sure,
arms
you're asking
trading or
about the
drug
dark
dealing,
web,
but
the dark
my
web.
point, my question on the Silk Road is it seems to represent in a kind of odd way a model, a libertarian model where there are no rules, and
Right.
one result is of enormous illegal activity.
Mm-hmm. And I think we have to look at why people engage in illegal activity, and also why there is a need for privacy and doing things outside of, because maybe things have become so oppressive and controlled in everything that we're doing that people are looking for a way around that because they would like to live free, and they're really not able to in so many ways in our society. So I think another way to look at this is what's going on in our society that's causing people to feel like they need a dark web to escape the current reality. And there are criminals who are always going to look for ways to do shady things and get away with things. And that is not what we're talking about. We do not espouse criminal activity. And criminals are all, that's the definition, people who are criminals. And that.
Do you believe, I mean, and I know you're not an official spokesperson for libertarianism, but you are the CEO and founder of Freedom Fest. Valerie, do you believe in the idea of human evil?
Ooh, that's a really good question, Andrew. I tend to be an optimist. I look at little children when they're born and I think to myself, all human life, somehow when it comes to this planet, however that happens, is just absolutely beautiful. And then life hits us and it affects us, it traumatizes us, and none of us get through childhood and none of us get to adulthood without some level of trauma. And I think some of that trauma turns people into individuals who do not make strong moral choices. And as a result, we have to have consequences for that to protect the people who do. And that's an unfortunate necessity. But I believe in the basic human dignity and goodness of all people. And until they prove that otherwise, that I will always lean on the side of believing in human beings. And I'm okay with being a little bit naive.
One of the things, Valerie, I like about what you're doing at Freedom Fest is you're bringing together people who wouldn't always be in the same room. So some of the speakers this year, you've got Cornel West, you've got Daryl Davis, who was on the show, an anti-Klans activist. You've got my old friend Ryan Holiday. You've got Ulbricht, a sort of a digital utopian, I guess. And you've also got classical conservatives like Steve Forbes.
That's right.
What are you guys doing to bring together people of such unusual background? I mean, last year you had RFK Jr.
That's right. And
again, an incredibly controversial figure, but a man who's very much associated with libertarianism. I've sometimes thought that, for better or worse, libertarianism is perhaps the purest kind of American political ideology.
I think that's an accurate perspective. That's one of the reasons I really appreciate libertarianism, because it's very pure in its principles. And sometimes it's like you were asking me, do people really want to, have to pay for each of their roads? And I have to say, as a small libertarian, yeah, like the things that are uncomfortable, you have to, if you really believe in the principles of libertarianism, of choice and having the freedom to choose, you have to be willing for people to make the bad choices and then do something about that instead of protecting all the time. And that's hard. That's difficult. And I appreciate that libertarians are willing to say, yeah, we have to remove the safety net. Yeah, even if that causes this, that, or the other. And then the expectation that goodness will step in, or the market can solve those kinds of problems, is really rather wonderful. It does feel very consistent, and I like that. What are we doing at Freedom Fest? So there's so much political divisive discord going on in the world today, especially in kind of Western society. And we feel like there's not enough progress, real listening and progress being made, because people seem less and less able to have nuanced conversations and to be able to understand each other. There's a lot of rhetoric and vitriol between people who don't think they agree with each other. And so what we're doing at Freedom Fest is an invitation to anyone who cares about liberty in some direction. We don't all have to agree in any particular direction, but if you care about drug legalization, and you care about lowering taxes, if you care about offshore living, if you care about Bitcoin, if you care about criminal justice reform or education reform, you can come together at Freedom Fest and have conversations about that. So we'll do debates, but they're not yell at each other, tear each other down kind of debates. They are true presentations of different viewpoints where the audience member can then listen and hear something and actually make an intelligent decision in their own mind. Did I hear something that changed my mind? If so, what? If so, why? Or did I hear something that allowed me to feel, yes, I feel more validated in my previous viewpoint? We also have a lot of panels. And it's not a panel where it's like somebody on the left, somebody on the right. How boring. And it doesn't get us anywhere. It's not a teeter-totter. It's everything in between. It's here. So we'll talk about immigration, and we'll have somebody who's pure open border, pure closed border maybe, but also other innovative ideas in between. Climate change. It's not just climate change is happening. Climate change isn't happening. You're making it up. You're making it too big. No. What are all the different ways that we can approach climate change? How can we be good stewards of our earth? How can free markets be an example? How can we work with governments to incentivize good behavior? We have multiple people with different ideas. So that's how we reach out to different people. Because if we're just talking in the echo chamber, it doesn't do any good. And if we're just screeching at each other, I'm right, you're wrong, it doesn't do any good. And there's way too much of that going on. So we reach out to people who have the interest in independent thought, in nuanced conversation, in being curious, to come together and have those conversations. And then to take away something new and valid that they can implement in their own lives, in their own communities, in their own businesses. And then that's how we see progress being made.
I'm guessing this week, we're speaking at the beginning of the week. Who knows what the situation will be when the event begins on Wednesday. But at the moment, there's a great deal of violence, anarchy, tension in Los Angeles. You mentioned immigration. The Marines have been deployed by Donald Trump. Meanwhile, Donald Trump and Elon Musk have split. I'm guessing there'll be a lot of overt or implicit discussion of Trump. What is there a standard libertarian take on Trump? Is he anti-libertarian?
Oh, so Trump is I would say overall in the libertarian community not well liked, and we do have people who come to Freedom Fest who think Trump is doing good things, and he's coming together, bringing things up that haven't been brought up before, and they feel very happy about that. So again, it's a pretty big mix of people at Freedom Fest, and surprisingly, we're able to get along with each other. What an interesting idea. So I think that there are definite issues we have had a long history of encroachment on rule of law and constitutionality by both parties, to the point where we are now, where there's been, this government is nothing what the founders envisioned, and certainly not anything close to what a libertarian would like to see. And this has happened with both parties and every single president. Even somebody like a Reagan spent too much money and did things in the defense field that was, not libertarian. So we would see any of these presidents as not following the Constitution, and there are definite huge overreaches happening right now, but they're overreaches into overreaches. I mean, that's the problem with our government right now, is that there is such a disregard. And if one side overreaches, the other one complains about the overreach. At the same time, they're overreaching in some other area, or they'll now use that overreach when it advantages them.
So I'm guessing that there'll be a strong kind of Muskian quality. Of course, he was close to Trump during a few months ago when he orchestrated the Doge initiative in DC. You're from DC.
Yep.
Is there shall we say, a Muskian quality to Freedom Fest?
I think that compared to Trump, our people would be much more in like you say, the Muskian, in terms of how can you have a vision and be entrepreneurial about taking the world forward through technology or different innovations through business. So what he's doing with SpaceX, what he's doing with Tesla, what he's doing with all of his different projects, we would really value, because this is an individual having a vision and finding ways to make that happen without, he has taken some government funding. And so he's not like I wouldn't think that Elon Musk is not this perfect, nobody's perfect. I mean, there's no person out there. There's no one who's out there doing things in a perfect way. We're human beings. So the place,
not even Benjamin Franklin.
Not even Benjamin Franklin. No, he was what do they call it? A bit of a philanderer. So even
he liked the ladies, didn't he?
So, but I think of most of the founding fathers, he's probably as close you could get, but human. So unless you've translated into that deity shape, you're human. And so Musk has issues, Trump has issues, Biden had issues, like nobody's perfect. And so I think that's what I like about going back to libertarianism as a philosophy, because I can appreciate the things that each person, each group is doing. If it's in line with giving people more choice, limiting government, and allowing people to live freer lives, then I'm in favor of that. And when it's not, I'm not. And it doesn't matter to me, the political labels. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm not, if it's Republican, it's good. If it's Democrat, it's bad. And there's way too much of that. Instead of seeing, is this policy going to increase people's freedom? Is it going to make them keep more of what they earn, give them more choices to live the life that they want to live? And if that's what's happening, then I'm in favor of it.
One of the issues that, of course, dominates today's American discourse is the woke movement, what you can and can't say. Last year, you had Steven Pinker as one of your keynotes, along with RFK Jr.
Yeah.
Pinker, last week, he always seems to be involved in controversies.
Yes.
He's been criticized for appearing on a podcast linked to scientific racism. Is there, I mean, one of the things I find quite refreshing about libertarians and libertarianism is they seem more tolerant to discussion of tricky subjects than either the left or the right. What does what do the libertarians bring to this debate about wokeness, about what one can and can't say about complicated, controversial subjects?
Yeah, I think that libertarians are willing to they really understand what freedom of expression means, and that is why we can have more nuanced conversations. And it is tricky. For example, I would say there are probably libertarians out there who believe in the dignity of human beings, and that it's this interesting balance that every human being has equal value and no human being is better than another, and that by their own work and their own intellectual property, they have the right to do whatever they want. And they would also say everybody has their own right of free association. So if you want to only be friends with the people that you want to be friends with, you can. And so the problem is when government comes in and says these people should be divided, that is not okay with libertarians. But on a personal basis, you get to choose who you want to be friends with. And so, but you also can't interfere with somebody else's rights to be who they want to be with. So there are these kind of conversations that are really layered and based in principles that as you investigate them, you can have this great opportunity to really understand what it means to be free. And it's not about waving a flag, you know, it's really about, what does it mean to be free when it's difficult? What does it mean to be free when somebody is saying something you disagree with? And, you know, you may have the right to speak, but I also have the right whether or not I want to listen. Does it mean that I'm canceling someone? If I don't like somebody, if, you know, let's take dear Rush Limbaugh back when he was alive, and lots of people tuned in to his radio channel.
Did he used to come to Freedom Fest?
No, he never came to Freedom Fest. And
was he invited?
you know, that was before my time. I think he never came. He was never invited since I've been the director. So I don't know if he was ever invited in the history of Freedom Fest. But, you know, it's kind of interesting that he had the right to say what he wanted to say, and he was able to get on radio stations. They had the right to decide that he was on radio stations. And I also had the right, when I was in my car on the radio, whether to listen to him or not. And if I turned him off and didn't have him in my car, didn't have him in my house, I was not canceling him. And I also didn't need to, it was okay that I just turn him off. I don't want to listen to that today. Or maybe I do. Maybe I want to hear what Rush Limbaugh has to say today. And maybe there's somebody else, you know, Rachel Maddow. Maybe today I want to listen to Rachel Maddow. Maybe I don't. And I can turn that off. My right to hear or to see what I want to see is part of freedom of expression. And a lot of times we talk about what people are allowed to say. But just because I don't want to hear what you have to say doesn't mean I have to listen. And that can be enough. I don't have to go and stop you from saying what you want to say. And just because I turn you off in my car also doesn't mean I've canceled you. So there's this, in wokeism today, there's this sense of, because I've seen it go both ways, where you better stop talking because you said something I don't like. And if I say I don't want something, maybe at my conference, is that canceling somebody? If I don't have a certain speaker come because they are too controversial, or they don't align with our audience, or they don't fit our theme this year, am I canceling them because I don't have them at a conference? You know, is somebody canceling me if they choose not to come to a conference because I have a particular speaker? That happens sometimes. Not everybody was happy that Dr. Cornel West was coming to Freedom Fest.
No, they're not.
They said he said some things I don't agree with. How could you have him on your stage?
Well, that's a good reason to have him. Finally, as I said, you had RFK Jr. last year. He, I think, at one point was running officially as the Libertarian candidate. Is there a need in our two-party system, an increasingly archaic two-party system where no one trusts either party? Is there a need for a Libertarian Party, or is that a kind of contradiction in terms? Once Libertarianism becomes a party, it's no longer Libertarian.
That is such a great question. And there's a lot of asking those kinds of questions going on in libertarian circles right now, how the Libertarian Party should function, and exactly that kind of dichotomy that it automatically sets up. I think that while it makes things more complicated to have multiple parties, we cannot stay in this two-party duality of just back and forth and more and more. I mean, our country is tipping like this. I can't, you know.
And for people who are just listening, we had a wonderful tipping backwards and forwards.
Yeah, so sorry. I'm tipping my whole body back and forth. I'm a dancer.
You're a dancer, so you're dancing the two-party system.
I am. And so that is unsustainable. And we need the infusion of other ideas. The idea that you can only have a Republican or a Democrat way of, there are so many more ways of running our government, of running our society, of leading our society, of allowing our society. And we are not investigating those things. And we are being pitted against each other. in a way that is stagnating our society. And the only thing that is going to get that busted open is by introducing other thoughts with viable mechanisms for actually implementing those. And as of right now, there is a huge effort to keep out any kind of third party influence. They're not allowed, the standards are so high to get in the debates, to get on the ballot. It is drastically unfair because they want to keep it in this two-party power struggle, because that keeps us kind of mind numbed and just doing what they want us to do. And that is not freedom. And I'll just bring it back to freedom is supposed to expand and to bring beauty and joy to our lives. And that's one of the reasons at Freedom Fest, we talk about all these serious things, and it's really important. Financial freedom is important, health freedom, political freedom. We talk about all of that, but we also have fun at Freedom Fest. We have our comedy show. Adam Carolla is headlining this year. We have karaoke. We have the film festival. We have music and dancing. We have yoga in the mornings, because life is meant to be joyful. Freedom is meant to be joyful. And we need to be concerned, but we can't live our lives in angst. We must come together and have a joyful life. And that's why at Freedom Fest, we also have a great time.
Well, that's what Freedom Fest is. It's fun. It's in a fun city, Palm Springs. Hope it won't be too hot this week. But very interesting conversation. I'm not a libertarian, but I think some of the things you're saying, Valerie, are refreshing and true. And certainly libertarians have more fun. They're certainly more tolerant than I think people on the left or the right. So best of luck with Freedom Fest this week. It promises to be a great event. I'm going to try and come down. You held this year in Palm Springs. Next year it will be in Las Vegas. It's very much of a Western event with a Western spirit. Best of luck, Valerie, with it. And lovely to talk to you.
Thanks so much.